Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Psychedelic Scene podcast. I'm your host, Jill Sitnick. Think of me as your psychedelic big sister. And today we are talking about what happens after you have a breakthrough, but you don't have any scaffolding or support to help you through that. But then you find yourself back in your normal life. And so the question is like, what do I do now? And that's what this conversation is about. And interestingly, it's a conversation about technology. I'm joined by Sabba Nazhand, who comes from a deep background in tech, and he found his way into this space through his own personal work. And what he's building is a tool to deal with the gap of, I had this really powerful experience and I need to figure out a way to process it. And I want to be able to connect with a practitioner who also could use some help in helping me process. So it's a very interesting conversation about a tool that future practitioners can use and what can help people going through these breakthroughs as they need support moving forward. So let's go ahead, let's get into it. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Psychedelic Scene podcast. Today I have with us Sabba Nazhand. It took me about 5 times to get his name pronounced correctly. So he's already like one of the nicest people I've met. So, Sabba is in this particular conversation, he's in the tech space and I can fangirl really quickly. So I'm going to have him introduce himself, give us his origin story, and talk about some really cool stuff that he's working on right now. Sabba, introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you, Jill. So happy to be here. Yeah, let me start from the top. So personally, first generation immigrant from Iran. My family migrated here in the 80s during the Iran-Iraq War.
80s?
Yes, 80s baby. And yeah, Persian family, the classic story, parents left everything behind to give my sister and myself a better life. And that was, and I think we can probably talk about that because it just weaves in so many things. But yeah, I grew up in the DC area. And then most of my life bounced around DC, Florida, New York, Hong Kong, London, and so on. But yeah, my roots are in DC, where I grew up and spend most of my days. And yeah, professionally, as you mentioned, Jill, I'm in tech. I spent 20 years, my whole career in software sales, working with organizations across the world, across the map, and in various industries. I was always that guy building revenue engines, building products, always thinking about other people's visions. And yeah, why are we here today I think is really interesting. So for me, I found psychedelics later in life from a therapeutic standpoint. As a youth, I explored and it was fun. And what happened was when we moved here, I started to see this lens of my perspective of life. I grew up in a household of survival because that's what we had to do. We had to survive. My parents came from, left everything, started over. So everything was survival. How do we get the next paycheck? How do we live? How do we eat? And that survival for me translated into achievement. And from achievement, it translated into don't feel. Because if you have feelings, you can't achieve and then you can't survive. So emotions became a luxury in my household because it had to be, because we couldn't afford it. And so psychedelics brought me to all of that realization. It broke me open. It not in a woo way by any means, but in a, oh, wow, I've been running someone else's operating system my whole life. And that was this moment of like, oh shoot, like there's something needs to change. And then that's when the real work happened for me in my late 30s. And then there was psychedelics and integration, then therapy and sitting with a lot of uncomfortable spots. And I'm going to say this because I won't go too far off base, but the irony hit me when I was doing this work a decade ago or so, was that my ancestors knew this. And in Iran, Persians, mystics, Rumi, Sufism, Zoroastrian, these were mystical traditions, thousands of years of inner work and connected to the universe, to earth, to God. All of that was in me. It's in our roots, but survival made us forget that. And so this was me adopting something foreign. It was like my homecoming. It was me going back to my roots. And so I'll stop there. That's kind of my quick intro.
Okay, beautiful. Well, so we connected through the therapeutic use or the self-growth use or
Yes.
the I like to say coming back to self kind
Yes.
of thing because that's really what it does if you're really doing the work.
Right.
So let's get into the techie stuff. Come on, I
Yes.
need to fangirl a little bit. What are what's the project that you're working on and how does it fit into this whole psychedelic space?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So I'll start with kind of like the why. Like, why did I even start building what I'm about to share? And it was very much my own personal experiences. And that was I went one of the most profound experiences I've had, and you hear this a lot, was I sat with 5-MeO,
Oh yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
and that was my first true foray into psychedelic therapy or high doses, not in a recreational setting. And obviously, most know, very powerful medicine, powerful substance, and that cracked me open. It opened me up. It made me realize some beautiful things, like such deep connection, such love, and feeling the universe. With all these very beautiful things, but it also was this moment of like suppression. I released a lot. I talked. I it brought up a lot of core memories of my childhood, of my adulthood, of you know running this life into and through somebody else's
Right.
operating system and being a shell of myself. So it's like all these things happened in a day. And I remember that day I was there in the medicine, and the practitioner and the facilitators were saying that I kept repeating over and over again that I've been waiting for this my whole life, over and over and over again. It was so powerful, so beautiful. And when it was done, they gave me a hug. They patted me on the back and said, "Have a nice day." And this was in New York City in a beautiful setting where I did the work. And then I walk outside and I'm sitting in the middle of Manhattan, and I go, okay, so what
What's
now?
next? Yeah, I could tell what you were going to say. What do I do now? Yeah.
Like what now? And the next 2 weeks I flip-flopped between disoriented,
Yeah.
wanting to run away. I had, my newborn at the time, wife at the time, my career, all these things. I was like, I don't want any of it. I want to go. I don't want this. And then this other aspect of me was like, now that I have felt and experienced what I did, like I feel this calling to keep doing this work for myself, to be a better
Yeah.
father, a better person. So it
Yeah.
was this contradiction that was happening. I didn't know how to process this. It was like, I didn't even know what integration was really. Um, and so that turned in,
How would you?
yeah, exactly. How would I, right?
Mhm.
And granted, you can argue I should have done more homework, I should have done this and that, but that was this was the path that I needed to go, and it was all connected. It was exactly what I had to go through.
Mhm.
And so luckily I had friends I reached out to, community, started digging in a little more,
Good.
and then there was like harm reduction, and then heard about integration, and there was this very clear thing that was happening. People like me are going through these experiences, having these real breakthroughs, and they go back to their reality, they go back home, and there's no support.
There's
And
no
it's
scaffolding for the experience.
correct, no scaffolding. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, something is off here. So then I hear this buzzwords about integration and, oh, taking that information, go hug a tree and journal, and all of that is beautiful. And it's
All of
very,
that's beautiful.
the same time as like, what the heck does that even mean? Like, what does that even mean to me right now?
Right.
I'm an executive living in New York City. Like, what does that mean? Like, translate this for me, because I really need help.
Yes.
So, and I heard this across the board. So then I started talking to practitioners and talked to many, some I hired for myself, some just out of curiosity. And I started hearing the same thing on their side. It was like two sides of the same coin.
Mhm.
They meant well, they wanted to support their clients, but they didn't know how to continue. It was like continuity of care. They didn't know what to do. It was like, oh,
It's a
here's a
completely,
PDF.
it's a completely different skill set. There's a
Exactly.
facilitating skill set, and then there's the prepper. And yeah, it's a different skill set.
Exactly. And they were like, okay, well, I give them a PDF and we talk once a week, maybe 3, 4 times, and then good luck. And I was like, okay, this is also not working for me. Like, what
Right.
what is that? So practitioners were feeling it too. Clients are not continuing their relationship. They don't hear from each other. And
Right.
so that's why I built my company. So my company Safar, which translates to journey in Persian, it's that support layer. It's that support layer between sessions, keeping practitioners connected to their clients' growth in real time, and then makes the in between active instead of empty. So going down this technical rabbit hole, our tool is an integration operating system. And this operating system gives practitioners visibility into their clients when they're not in the room together, quote unquote, and then gives the clients something to use, such as journaling, voice recognition conversations, so they can continue their care, what comes up. All that information is trained by our our private AI that gives these insights to the practitioner. So now the practitioner gets on the next call and says, "Hey, Sabba, I'm looking at some of this information. This last week, you did X, you did Y. This is what you're feeling. Can we talk about it?" So now they're prepared. They have insights into their client's mind, and the client doesn't feel like they have to talk about everything that they just went through for the last week. That is what we're building.
Does the client does the client also see the AI summary to
That's correct.
know
Yeah.
if he or she agrees with the summary to then have a session about?
Yes, that's correct. So our AI tools are meant for insights, suggestive models, and then outcomes. We're not replacing the therapist. We're not replacing the human connection. All we're doing is providing this guide, this mirror for the client. And as an example, the client, instead of getting on another app and typing and staring at a screen, they put the phone in their pocket, put their headphones in, go for a walk, and now they're just having a conversation about their integration, prompts that are coming up, etc. And this AI is literally guiding them. We've trained them to not go down the path of giving advice or suggestions. And that information is then processed, sent over to the practitioner, and we're measuring the tone of what the client is saying, their emotions that are coming up. So it's all sentiment analysis, and then providing that to the practitioner and to the client themselves.
So for our listeners, what can very often happen during during a very effective therapeutic journey is that the time period after, there's lots and lots of, I call it the fire. There's lots of sparks. There's lots of ideas that come across. There's lots of perspective shifts. Some of them are big, some of them are tiny. My point is there's a lot of them. And if in some, I always tell my clients, journal, 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 or voice record, because sometimes even just walking my dog, what I was working on in the beginning of the mile, I had already forgotten by the end of the mile because I had already created that shift. And if you don't kind of keep track, number one, you might not know what to continue to work on, but you also might not give yourself the pat on the back that you kind of deserve because you're making those perspective shifts. You aren't really documenting it. And so it doesn't, they don't have the spark of the journey. So I'm phrasing the question that way because those fire and sparks, those are some really personal things that people are going to be putting into your app. I'm putting my techie hat on. Talk to me about the privacy involved in what's behind your app.
Yeah. So I want to caveat one statement and then I'll answer your privacy question.
Yeah.
So the way we built and trained the way we built our platform and our training our models is based, let's get into neuroscience for a second. It's based into neuroscience on the salience network. The salience network in the brain suggests that it triggers, sorry, let me back up. The salience network is a network in your brain that tells you what is important right now. So if it's, oh my goodness, I need to go turn this fire off, or I have laundry to do, it's whatever at that moment is priority, the salience network triggers the brain to say, hey, Sabba, this is what you need to do. So it's constantly doing that. And it's constantly thinking of what is priority for you. So in our tool with the salience intelligence, that's what we're trying to build. It's building this network that says, what matters to you right now? How can we prioritize what's important to you right now by a few mechanisms, the conversations, the sentiment analysis, the feedback, the intake, all of that is essentially goes in there and it gives you these patterns that are hopefully ideal to say this is what's important right now.
Interesting. Okay.
And so, and I think it's a good segue going into your safety question. There's a few mechanisms here that are really important. Number one, it's all encrypted. Most tools are, but we take encryption very seriously. And what that essentially means is all the private information in our platform between the client and the practitioner relationship is all HIPAA compliant, HIPAA aligned, and it's encrypted and safe, and can also be anonymous. A lot of the clients don't want their name and information because they're working with tools that may not be legal in their state, but it could be legal in, where they went in Jamaica or Netherlands or something.
Right.
And so in those ways, that's private. Secondly, with AI, yes, AI is this all-encompassing data model. And at the end of the day, it does have access to your data. The difference is that we have built guardrails. And the guardrails that we've designed on our platform essentially is like a moat around the AI systems. And this moat essentially says, you cannot cross this line. You cannot say these things. You cannot talk about this. You cannot encourage this. You cannot advise on this. And so that was very important to us. And let me explain why.
Yeah.
Most AI models, like if someone's thinking, well, why can't I just go to ChatGPT and just type what's on my mind? You can, and it could be decent. The difference is AI models today are are models that are meant to be empathetic, that are meant to be agreeable to what you say. And it sounds in hindsight like that's so great. I can go on here and say, hey, ChatGPT, I'm feeling very lonely and scared and very worthless. And ChatGPT will say, I'm so sorry you're feeling worthless. So what is that doing? It is reflecting back to you that you're worthless. And that's the problem. It sounds helpful, but it's doing, it's reinforcing something that may not necessarily be true. So now I get off my conversation with ChatGPT and I say, well, shit, I'm worthless. So I'm going to go down this path. And that path could be very scary. It could be very bad. And things have happened. Yes. In our instance, in the guardrails, we have trained and do the opposite. If someone says, I'm feeling worthless, what the tool will say is, tell me what are the things that are coming up for you. And it talks about it. And then it says, the best thing for you to do right now is XYZ, or go reach out to your practitioner. It doesn't reinforce that statement. All it does is mirror what they said back. So those are some of the guardrails and the safety features that we have incorporated.
Is one of the guardrails something sometimes after a journey, especially, a client can get really low, whether it's the day or two after and there's a serotonin low, or they are coming across some really awful stuff from their childhood that, so what are the guardrails around, I don't really want to go on anymore. This is too hard. I'm ready to leave. What are the guardrails around those conversations?
Absolutely. Because we're HIPAA aligned, because we have guardrails that are based on actual harm reduction, actual safety, it will flag it. And to give some credit to the bigger ChatGPT companies, they've also have created those guardrails because people have hurt themselves in the past. So those are triggers that immediately say, like, either push notification to the practitioner.
That's what I was curious about.
That gives a flag that says, hey, Sabba just said this, call them, or 911 or whatever it may be, but it triggers those emergency harm reduction functions.
And I think that's what's important. Usually, unless there's a history of suicidality or you really should be working with a trained therapist at that point too. Yes. But usually those things are, when you're dealing with deep trauma, unfortunately, they're very common thoughts to have run across your mind. So flagging the practitioner, I think, is great. So from a UI standpoint, from the client, from the customer, not from the practitioner, does it look like a cute little bubble? Hey, I'm thinking of the bubble of ChatGPT. Like, does it, or the little Claude little flower, right? It's a flower. Like, is that the interface? What's it look like to the client?
I love how you're asking these awesome questions. Yeah, it's all app based. It's all on your phone, and it's a neural network, cute, round orb type thing.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and it's a living, breathing type of design. Obviously, that's intentional. We're not special. Everybody does it, but that's the vision of it. And
But
I
you're
will also,
talking to something.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And I will also say, what I think is really important, and you know this better than most, is during intake, prep, and pre-journey, a lot of this stuff is going to come up for the client that the practitioner is going to be aware of. And I don't, if I'm a practitioner, I'm not having my client touch a computer or an app for a couple of days.
Right.
And that would be kind of like my very obvious recommendation. And I don't need to tell practitioners how to do their job,
Or
but
don't stress your brain with doing
yeah,
computer stuff.
exactly. Like sit with, like, you need a couple days, like process, journal, like do anything that doesn't have like
Touch
computer work
grass.
stuff. Yeah. So like, yeah, exactly. Touch grass. Like
Yeah.
those things are important. So, but it is inevitable.
Yeah.
I'd be lying if I didn't. I've done it where I've done it enough now where I feel comfortable to do solo journeys
Mhm.
and sit with myself and process like pretty much anything. But I've also been the kind where now, especially, is like as soon as I'm done with my ceremony, with my journey, I do get on my app and I do start typing. And so that it works for me, but it doesn't work for everyone. And so I just want to be like, it's very clear, is like, give yourself the space, the grace, like whatever's coming up, like, talk to someone, or if it, and again, that's why we have the guardrail. So if something serious comes up, we flag it.
I think one of the ways my guide taught me this, and he said, in working from my side of it, of
Yeah.
not like being the practitioner, not being the client, that one of my guiding sentences is, don't put your hand in their wet paint.
Yes.
So there's a whole point of, like, as a practitioner, you are there not to put your stuff for them because their subconscious is busted open. And so what I'll say to clients is, look, the 2 or 3 days right after a journey, your paint is really wet. What do you want to put in there? Do you really want to put your job in there? You really want to put social media in there? Or if you're going to do social media, how about it be uplifting,
Yep.
amazingly inspirational? Like, really be intentional. And if part of that wet paint is, I really want to document this because I'm getting a ton of perspective shifts, that's awesome. Just make that choice intentionally. That's
Yeah.
kind of how I try to warn my clients. Whether they listen to me or not is a different thing.
That's it.
But
No, well said. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And look, I want to share this because I think the audience may appreciate it.
Mhm.
I struggle. I struggle as someone who's been in tech their whole career, who is very tech forward, and obviously is building a tool for supporting people that are going through very sacred, very personal journeys. I struggled with this. I still struggle with building these tools. And the things that came up for me, that still come up for me in our manifesto, my goal, one of the things I wrote in the manifesto was, how can we build technology that gets people away from technology? And that sounds so counterintuitive, but here's the thing, like most companies, especially the big evil ones that we all know about, they are building tools to keep people
Keep people
engaged.
in.
Exactly. Connected, engaged, addicted. Algorithms are pushing really bad. I mean, look,
Yes.
this just came out on the
Look,
news.
it just came. Yeah. The lawsuit. Yeah.
And the lawsuit was $3 million now. And here's what's sickening to me, and I have to go down this rabbit hole. It's great that they were found guilty. It's great that these families got something, but the
It
what
needs.
what happens here is now the big tech companies here, oh, it only costs us $3 million to keep doing what we're doing. That's a
It's
pennies for them. That's nothing.
it's a rounding error
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like, okay, yeah, sorry, here's your 3 million, go away, but we're going to continue doing it because the risk is not,
until
you
we're
know,
stopped. Yeah.
exactly. And so that to me is like, that's a little yucky. So for us, it's getting people away from tech. And how do we do that? One, it's these voice models, and it's training the models to help people engage more with community, with self,
Mhm.
with their practitioner. Human connection is so important. And if in 5 years our technology becomes redundant because people are like, we don't need this anymore. Well, wow, like what a great thing. Like I'll figure something else out, right?
Right.
And then the other part that I want to emphasize is we have to meet people where they are.
Yes.
And what I mean by that, not everyone has the luxury to go to a retreat in Costa Rica, unplug for 3 weeks, go integrate at the beach or in the jungle and
Right.
journal and be one with nature. They don't have that luxury. Most don't.
Right.
I didn't have that luxury. I had to sit with this medicine that my first time in New York. I had to walk home to my wife and kid, and then I had to go to work on Monday. There was no exception. And that was also, I don't recommend that, but my point is not everyone can do that. So how do you meet someone who doesn't have that luxury to go into the jungle? And how do you meet them? Well, the reality is some of it has to do with technology. That's just the reality. And if I can help people, practitioners or clients, get better, connect with themselves, transform, heal, etc. through technology, then I'm going to take that risk and do it. And so that's the kind of like the duality of what I'm working with. It's really hard, but I chose this path for many reasons, and this is one of them.
Well, I think what's also coming up for me is I'm working on what I'm finding with clients is I'm using the very same strategies that my therapist and guide used on me. And it's like a mix of IFS, somatics, and reparenting. It's this like lovely, very surface of all of them, but somehow it comes together. And so I feel very confident when I'm working with clients who have dealt with child abuse that I've got a strategy that we can work together.
Yes.
I do know, though, that there are a lot of practitioners who don't have that background. I mean, there is something to be said for going through the therapeutic process and learning from it, right? It's like an experiment, not going to college, but working in the field. I kind of see your tool, as a way to make practitioners better at their craft.
Yes.
If they're still developing their listening and empathy and coaching or therapeutic skills, I'm going to say this funny because I was a teacher. You're almost giving them the cheat sheet.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, you don't take offense to that. It wasn't meant offensively.
No, not at all. You bring up such a good point, and what I hear and what I 100% agree with is this: all practitioners mean well. Most don't have the right resources and training to be the best version of a practitioner that they can be, and it's not their fault.
Yes.
It's just the system. There are not enough practitioners in the world, and the ones that are going through it either get training up front and then that's it. Have a nice day, figure it out. And so there's no continuation of care for them. And so, it is like a cheat sheet. And not everyone is either skilled yet or has gone through the practice of being a somatic practitioner. And, and when I talk to somatic practitioners, they're like, okay, I see this works well in these areas and I'm going to use it. We have a few somatic practitioners, but they're like, for these things, I'm going with my path. And I'm like, please do.
Right.
And that's because they're somatically trained and they understand that, but not everyone does that. Right. And what happens is when practitioners don't have the resources and tooling and education to get better, like to your point, then they're going to lose clients. And then the clients are going to be the ones that are going to get hurt the most. And then the practitioners are not going to have an income. And so it's very simple. Like not everyone can be the top 1%, but they could be, more people can fall into the top 10, 15, 20, 30%, right?
Let's have an 80-20.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, and then that's why I think it's important, because like at the end of the day, people need practitioners, people need someone to work with, and they need someone that's going to know what they're doing. Like that's just plain and simple. So,
well, and I think an awful lot in this space gets that 80-20 thing. A lot of it is about creating a community with the person. Yes. When you get to really deep trauma, battle, child abuse, domestic abuse, attacks, then you definitely need a much sharper skill set to provide as much value or as much help. But for a good portion, a practitioner working through this can help a client move very well because the cheat sheet is there. So one of the challenges I have with clients is that I mentioned it earlier, they don't pat themselves on the back. They're in the midst of it. They're in the midst of it. They're on the highway and they can't quite see the mile markers of how far they've come. And I'm really curious. Audience, I have not looked at this app. I'm really curious if, as clients review their content, do you think there's an opportunity for them to see the progress that they're making through your UI?
Yeah, great question. And yes, and this is a gift and a curse when it comes to measuring outcomes, measuring success, right? And I'm guilty of it. I have my Aura ring. The third thing I do every morning is check my Aura ring to see how I slept instead of just checking my body.
How I slept.
I feel. So now I'm relying on this app, which actually helps because I need to know my heart rate variability because I'm working through some things, and obviously I have a stressful job and kids and all of that. So it's helpful. So for me, I love it. But I digress. Yes,
it's a two-sided coin.
It is. It's a two-sided coin, and I think if you build it the right way and people are not stuck on just being like, oh, how can I take this 5% better? But it's like, how can I see that I'm improving? What does improvement look like? That to me, I think is important for everyone. And the way we do it is in a couple ways. One, yes, you have dashboard with your insights and things like that. Like a lot of our practitioner client relationships are using assessments, right? Like the classic clinical assessments, but then there's human design, Myers-Briggs. There's things that they're using, which I think is beautiful, that they're incorporating into their practice. So I'm learning this, right? Because when we onboard a practitioner, they're like, oh, I use human design with Enneagram, and then this is how we work with our intake and integration. I was like, well, that's brilliant, right? But clients have access to their insights. Clients have access to getting this feedback that they can see and view, that they can share with their practitioner, and the practitioner can give them additional insights into what they're seeing. And what we're also incorporating are these positive reinforcement, I think it's the best way I can say it, nudges. And these nudges are just like, hey, you're working through something. That's okay. Be proud of what you're doing. Grace comes in this form. So it's like these little like lovey-dovey nudges that are incorporated throughout the experience of the app that clients can see. And again, this is nothing new. Like when I pull up my Insight timer to do meditation, there's always this beautiful quote that pops up, and I'm always like, oh, that's nice. And so there's things like that we do in addition to the insights and the monitoring that I think can be very helpful.
Yeah.
And the flip side is we also have clients that when I talk to practitioners, that they don't want to see any of that. They don't care for that, and that's okay. And they just want to turn that off. Turn it off. They just want to do their work, talk to their practitioner, trust their practitioner wholeheartedly, and whatever the practitioner says or however they do their work, that's how they do it. You have the agency to work any way you like, but the point is, like, we want to build these mechanisms that hopefully can give you some insights into that you're going into the right direction.
Yeah. All right. So put my techie hat on.
Right.
So what, without giving away trade secrets, so in just a general overview, kind of what would you say the next, I'm thinking like the software batches, like what's the next batch of things, and or if you don't want to give that away, like what are some of the asks from your practitioners? What are you seeing?
Those are great questions. You're putting me on the spot, and I love it.
Again, nothing.
In a good way. No.
Don't give it away.
Hopefully Zach, my co-founder, who is the chief technical officer and the architect of our tool, doesn't get mad at me. But what we envision, there's kind of two things that are happening here. And I'm going to go down a rabbit hole tangent like I always do. I'll answer your question first. From a technical perspective and our roadmap, when we think about how we want to help practitioners, especially in the psychedelic space and the neuroplastogen space, it's about outcome measurements. How can we create a tool that measures the right, accurate outcomes so clients are healing, transforming, growing, etc. That's like the ultimate goal. And why is that important? Well, as this becomes more mainstream, which it will, and it is, and insurance gets involved, and whether you love it or not, pharma gets involved, they're going to want to see,
Oh, they're going to want the
are these
coding and
things
to see it.
working? Exactly.
Oh,
Are these things working? Are they working in the right way? Can we measure the right outcomes? And no offense to the people who built the assessments from 70, 40 years ago, the MEQs and all of that. Those are okay. And we use them, but they're outdated and they don't actually show what true outcome measuring is. So we're taking on the task of building the new outcome measurement layers for psychedelic therapy, neuroplastogen therapy, and in the future something big and even bigger. And so
wow.
that's our like grand vision is how do we do that? Like how do we know that this modality for this type of person with this type of integration has this type of success rate and this type of outcome? Well, we can try to figure out as much as we can and get that. That's a huge thing, but
That's a huge thing.
we're up for the task. That's the kind of the grand vision.
Okay.
The other part is accessibility. So here's where my 10 is coming in. The people that need this type of work, the psychedelics, neuroplastogen therapy work, are the ones that do not and cannot afford working with practitioners, with therapists, or cannot do something illegal. And these are the folks that need it the most. These are the underserved, the underprivileged populations that have either no insurance or
Very
really bad.
few resources.
Exactly. They're the ones that need it most. And these populations are struggling with mental health, like
Yes.
everyone, but the population of the underserved have a higher percentage of mental health issues than any other population. That's a fact. And that's part one. Part one is access. They don't have access to these because of the way the systems are built, and it's really unfortunate. The other part, the other side of the system are the laws. The laws that are designed for these medicines, these modalities, obviously they're mostly illegal. And this might ruffle feathers. The laws are designed for the privileged folks to get away with some of this work that they're doing. And that's a sad reality that someone from an underrepresented community can go in ceremony and sit with these medicines, and if they get arrested, they're going to get stuck, and they're going to have worse outcomes than someone who's not in that category, because that's how the laws are written, and it's unfortunate.
Yep.
And so for us, this is a big path, and again another big undertaking. How can we build tools that are going to give people more access to practitioners in the future, that are going to be, affordable, to insurance that will cover it, or non-insurance payments that's going to work. And then also getting into the space of legality of like, I need X modality because this is the only thing that's going to save me. What can I do to, use it? And then you giving tools for free or ways for people to connect to practitioners when they can't, because, where they live, for example, doesn't have the right practitioners that they want or anything like that. So that's my tangent. Those are the two big, massive things that I think about as
big, audacious goals.
Big old goals that are, that we're thinking about at Safar.
I think that's really telling. I think both of us have it sounds like we have very similar views as to how any sort of legalization is going to roll out in the US. And in no way, shape, or form do I see the underground ending. I see the underground expanding just because the expense.
And you know what? As it should. The underground is the reason why all of this is happening. The underground has some of the best people, practitioners, amazing human beings that are doing work because they love it, and it should keep growing. And I don't care what anybody says.
I love it. I love those big, giant, hairy, audacious goals. And I mean, I can, just from the first comment you made, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine that data set. That's where my mind went.
Oh my, I can't either. So
that's how you're talking to another techie, when they immediately go, oh my gosh, that data set. All right. So I have a bunch of other questions. I think we might wind up connecting offline, because I'd love to kind of get a look at it.
Yeah.
Actually, let me rephrase. Are you
Yeah.
on your website? Are you going to have any UI that kind of shows people what it looks like, or is it like a demo? How do practitioners find more information?
Yes. Thank you for saying that. Yeah. The easiest way is go to our website, which is joinsafar, joinsafar.com. And you can sign up to get early access. We're still in our MVP phase, but we have paying customers and a very
And
small cohort.
wait. MPV for our non-techie people.
Yes. MVP is minimal viable product,
There
which
you go.
means it's the product that I unfortunately I want it to be perfect, but it's not, that
Right.
I have put it out publicly and people can
Let's
use,
get
pay
some
for. Yes,
feedback.
exactly. So we have a small cohort of paying customers, and then we have a cohort of testers that are in the tool now. So you can go sign up, and then we'll have a quick conversation, and then I'll give you access to the platform, and we can go from there.
There you go. Yeah. And for everybody who's not used to tech, and this is a very standard, practical way. The only way that your tech gets better is if you have active users telling you all the complaints.
Yes, please. Please. We want all of it. We're building it for practitioners, which in turn is building it for their clients. Um, we want the feedback.
You need the feedback.
We want you to tear it apart. They already do a good job of that. I can tell you, I can assure you that. So yeah, please do.
Yeah. My software, my master's degree is software, and
Yeah.
they don't hold back when they can't find the button they need to find. All right. So fantastic conversation. I guarantee I haven't covered everything. What's the question that I should have asked, or the question I didn't ask that we need to kind of talk through?
Yeah. You asked amazing questions. You put me on the spot, which I love.
I didn't need to.
I think the question that we need to ask is, how do we build mechanisms, support resources, and give people more access to psychedelics, neuroplastogens, and amazing people to get better without undermining where these came from the indigenous, from the wisdom keepers, from these ancient traditions, that none of this would be made possible without that. And so how do we make sure that we don't just become another just fad of, again, don't hate me for this, the cannabis community that came in and what they did with like industrialization of cannabis and all of that was really scary and unfortunate, and what can potentially happen with the commercialization of psychedelics and that
I see
path.
where you're going. Yeah.
So how can we do both? How can we serve both? And there is a way, and some groups are doing it. We're building a council of wisdom keepers that are not just a group that we're working with, but they're going to be part of the business to help us build, grow, piece of the business, equity, and so forth. So we're compiling that team now. So that's the question that I want to bring up, is like, how do we do that? I don't even know if I have that answer, except is like, we need to remember that. And the last thing I'll say is, like, I remember which conference I was at, but there was an elder, a wisdom keeper. I don't remember which indigenous group he was with, but he said something that was really powerful, that he's like, every time the Western world or organizations try to commercialize ancient medicines, the ancient medicines turn ugly or negative. Like see what you did with tobacco and cigarettes, see what you did with X, right? And it's like, when you don't respect these medicines, they will always, turn on you, because they are much more wiser and much more intelligent than we are. And so that was this really interesting thing for me. It was like, yeah, how do we do that? And so anyways, that's something I think about a lot, and I don't have the full answers. We're trying to do our part, but that's the question that I want to make sure that we continue to think about.
Yeah, and for those of you who says, why did he say tobacco? Tobacco can actually be a very beautiful medicine.
Oh, absolutely.
Rape,
Yes.
beautiful for grief. From my own personal experience, beautiful
Yes.
for grief. I think it's true. It's the people that I have the pleasure of chatting with on this podcast, folks like you, it is a running theme. And I know in my own work, as I'm still at the bottom of the mountain with my work, but as I'm moving to the mountain, there's also this parallel idea of, the one person that's always in my head is my mother. My mother never had the opportunity to get this kind of help. Her life could have been dramatically different. My life could have been. So what, moving forward, how can I give back in a very specific way for a population that wouldn't have the resources, just like my mom? And I think as more of us are thinking that way, really just beautiful gardens are going to just be planted everywhere. So it'll come. It'll, the same way I'm at the bottom of the mountain and it's coming together. It'll come together for you too. I can tell you're a smart guy. It's all good.
Thank you. And well said. Thank you.
Sabba, thank you very much. Just
Thank
one
you.
more thing. I think you already gave the website, but you know what? It's something we do at the end of podcasts. Give us your website again.
Yeah, it's joinsafar, JOINSAFAR.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, my first and last name. Feel free to reach out. My email is Sabba, first name, at joinsafar.com. You can email me directly. I'm also on Instagram. I'm happy to talk to anyone anytime.
That is a brave, brave man putting his email out there like that.
That is brave.
Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. I think you can tell my techie roots kind of come out and I get really kind of deep into the weeds with some of that stuff. But here's the thing. The takeaway from this episode is really simple, and that is that the insight isn't about the work of the journey. It's what you do after that really makes all the difference. And whether it's journaling, exercises, somatics, working with a therapist, working with a coach, it doesn't have to be this huge thing, but it does have to be something to support you through that process. Sabba is offering a technical solution. I think it is a really interesting thing to investigate, both for clients and practitioners. But really the ultimate goal, and I think you could hear it throughout the episode, is he's really working to help people through this awakening process that I experience. And isn't that really why we're all here? So with that said, if you like this content, please feel free to like and subscribe to this video and the channel. If you like psychedelic culture content, head on over to psychedelicscene.com. You'll find articles about music and art. This podcast is housed there, really interesting articles. It's all bunches of psychedelic culture. And if you like that content, you know, Jason, our founder, has got a little donation thing for a cup of coffee, because he is the one that keeps the lights on and keeps all the cats herded with all of the content on that site. So with all of that said, take care, family. Until next time.